Perception is everything. It shapes how we see ourselves, how we see the world, and most importantly, how the world sees us. The truth is we are far more powerful than we realize. Every single one of us carries an energy, an influence that ripples through the lives of the people around us. And yet most of the time, we underestimate just how deeply we impact others. Think about this for a moment. Have you ever walked into a room and felt a shift in energy? Maybe people stop talking for a second. Maybe someone glances at you just for a split moment longer than usual. Maybe you feel a tension in the air, an unspoken awareness that your presence has been registered, even if no one openly acknowledges it. That's power. You don't have to say a word. You don't have to beg for attention. Your mere existence shifts the atmosphere. And yet so many of us walk around thinking we don't matter. We think that if someone doesn't say it out loud, if they don't tell us how much we mean to them, if they don't admit they're thinking about us, if they don't validate our worth, then somehow we must not be important to them. But that's the biggest lie you could ever believe. You see, human beings are complicated creatures. We're driven by emotions, but we also fight against them. We feel deeply, but we're taught to suppress, to hide, to act indifferent. So what do people do? They pretend. They play it cool. They bury their emotions so deep, even they struggle to admit them. But here's what they can't control. Their subconscious. Their subconscious doesn't care about their pride. Their subconscious doesn't care about their ego. Their subconscious is what keeps them up at night, replaying old conversations, reliving memories, wondering what could have been. And that's where your power comes in. You may think they've moved on. You may think they don't care. You may think that just because they're silent, just because they haven't reached out, just because they look unbothered on the surface, they must be fine. But here's what you need to understand. Silence is not proof of indifference. Distance is not proof of closure. And just because they aren't saying it doesn't mean they aren't feeling it. You see, the people who act the most unbothered are usually the ones who are struggling the most. Why? Because when someone is truly at peace, they don't need to prove it. When someone has truly moved on, they don't need to put on a show. But when someone is losing sleep over you, when someone is still emotionally tied to you but refuses to admit it, that's when they start acting. That's when they start putting on a performance, posting things to make you think they're happy, pretending they're too busy to care, surrounding themselves with distractions to fill the void. But deep down, they know. They know that losing you wasn't just losing a person. It was losing a presence, losing a feeling, losing something they thought they could take for granted. And the reason this realization hits them so hard is because they never expected to feel it this way. Most people assume they can walk away and be fine. They assume they can replace you. They assume time will erase whatever connection was there. But the truth is, some people are irreplaceable. Some energies can't be duplicated. Some bonds once broken leave a mark so deep, no amount of distractions can fully erase it. And that's where the power of perception comes in. Because right now, someone is out there struggling with the reality of your absence. They are feeling something they don't want to feel. They are wrestling with emotions they don't want to acknowledge. And yet they will go out of their way to make sure you never see it. But whether they admit it or not, whether they show it or not, whether they try to suppress it or not, they feel it. Because perception is reality. And in their reality, they are finally realizing something they never thought possible. You were more valuable than they ever gave you credit for. Emotion is the most powerful force in the world. It drives decisions, shapes memories, and dictates the way we experience life. And yet, as powerful as emotions are, people will do everything in their power to deny them, suppress them, and act as if they don't exist. But here's the truth. Energy doesn't lie. Someone can put on a mask, they can pretend they're unbothered, they can go about their day, post pictures, laugh with friends, act like nothing has changed, but their energy will always tell the truth. Because no matter how hard a person tries to convince the world or even themselves that they're fine, their subconscious will always betray them. Have you ever been in a situation where you just knew something was off? Maybe someone told you they were okay, but their body language said otherwise. Maybe they acted normal, but their eyes gave them away. Maybe they even went out of their way to prove they had moved on, yet something in you could feel that they hadn't. That's because emotional energy is impossible to fake. Think about it. When you're happy, when you're truly at peace, you radiate that energy effortlessly. You don't have to prove anything. You don't have to show it off. You don't have to go out of your way to convince people because it's real. But when someone is unsettled, when they're still emotionally tied to a situation they claim to have let go of, their energy will betray them. It will show up in the way they react, in the way they avoid, in the way they hold tension in their body, in the way they overcompensate by trying too hard to act unaffected. This is why someone might lose sleep over you and never admit it. Because while they may control their words, they can't control their thoughts. While they may control their actions, they can't control the emotions that rise up when they least expect it. It might hit them in the quiet moments, when the distractions fade, when they're alone, when they're staring at the ceiling in the middle of the night, and suddenly the thoughts creep in. The memories, the regrets, the what-ifs, the things they left unsaid, the things they wish they could undo. It might hit them when they hear a certain song, visit a certain place, or see something that reminds them of you. And in that moment, no amount of pretending will change the truth. The body remembers what the mind tries to forget. They can block you, they can ignore you, they can act like they don't care. But if they are still emotionally attached to you in any way, their energy will carry that weight whether they admit it or not. You see, when you've made a real impact on someone's life, your presence doesn't just disappear, it lingers. It stays in their subconscious. It becomes a part of them. And the deeper that impact was, the harder it is for them to let it go. Most people assume that if someone isn't showing their emotions, they must not have any. But that's not how emotions work. Some of the strongest emotions are the ones people refuse to express. Some of the deepest feelings are the ones people fight the hardest to suppress. That's why you should never take someone's silence as a sign that they're unaffected. In fact, the people who care the most are often the ones who go to the greatest lengths to act like they don't. Because vulnerability is uncomfortable. Because admitting they're still thinking about you means admitting they still feel something. Because acknowledging their emotions means facing the reality that they are not as detached as they wish they were. But here's the thing about suppressed emotions. They don't just disappear. They manifest in different ways. They turn into frustration, into avoidance, into anxiety, into overcompensation. They turn into sleepless nights, into passive-aggressive behaviors, into subtle reactions they think no one notices. And no matter how much they fight it, no matter how much they deny it, the truth remains. Their emotional energy will always reveal what their words refuse to say. Too many people go through life seeking validation from others. They look for reassurance that they are wanted, needed, and important. They wait for someone else to recognize their worth before they believe in it themselves. But let me tell you something. If you are waiting for someone else to tell you that you matter, you have already given away your power. Your value is not determined by whether someone acknowledges it. Your worth does not decrease just because someone fails to see it. The biggest mistake people make is thinking that their significance is tied to how someone else treats them. It's not. Your value exists whether someone appreciates it or not. But here's the real challenge. Do you know your own worth? Because if you don't, you will always find yourself chasing people who don't deserve you, chasing validation that should come from within, chasing love in places where you should have walked away. And every time you chase, you reinforce the idea that you need someone else's approval to feel whole. You hand over your power. You make someone else the authority over your own self-worth. But let me ask you this. What happens when you stop chasing? What happens when you wake up one day and realize that the way someone treated you is not a reflection of your value, but a reflection of their inability to appreciate it? What happens when you stop waiting for closure and start giving it to yourself? What happens when you finally decide that your time, your energy, your love, and your presence are privileges, not things to be taken for granted. The moment you own your value, everything shifts. Because when you truly understand your worth, you stop settling, you stop explaining yourself to people who don't deserve access to you. You stop trying to prove your importance to people who were never meant to hold that kind of power over you in the first place. And here's what's interesting. When you stop seeking validation, you start attracting it. When you carry yourself with the confidence of someone who knows their own worth, people feel it. They see it, they recognize it in the way you move, in the way you speak, in the way you show up. Suddenly, the people who once overlooked you start paying attention. The people who underestimated you start realizing their mistake. The ones who thought you would always be there begin to understand that losing you wasn't just losing a person, it was losing an experience, an energy, a presence that cannot be replaced. And this is where the real transformation happens. Because once you own your value, you stop needing them to see it. You stop needing anyone to validate you. Their recognition becomes irrelevant because you already know who you are. That's the shift that changes everything. Most people live their lives waiting for permission to feel worthy. They think if they love me, then I must be lovable. If they want me, then I must be enough. If they choose me, then I must be enough. That's backward thinking. You are lovable whether they love you or not. You are valuable whether they recognize it or not. You are enough whether they choose you or not. And the moment you start operating from that truth, you become unstoppable. Because here's what happens when you finally own your value. You stop begging for explanations. You stop internalizing rejection. You stop waiting for people to give you what you now realize you can give yourself. And when that happens, the people who once dismissed you, the ones who thought they could come and go as they pleased, start to feel the void. Because now they can't just assume you'll be there. Now they can't take your energy for granted. Now they can't manipulate you into proving yourself to them because you no longer need their approval. That's the power of owning your value. There is a moment in your life when everything changes. A moment when you stop chasing, stop seeking, stop trying to convince people of your worth. A moment when you realize that the energy you put out is the energy that comes back to you. That moment is when you shift from seeking to attracting. Most people spend their lives chasing things, chasing love, validation, success, happiness. They believe that if they just work harder, prove themselves more, do all the right things, they will finally get the recognition, the respect, the relationships they desire. But what they don't realize is that chasing only pushes those things further away. Why? Because when you chase something, you are operating from a place of lack. You are saying, I don't have this, and I need it to feel complete. You are telling the world, I need someone else to fill this gap in my life. And that energy is repelling, not magnetic. Think about it. When was the last time you were truly drawn to someone who seemed desperate for your approval? When was the last time you admired someone who needed constant reassurance? The truth is, we are naturally drawn to those who are secure in themselves, those who radiate a sense of purpose and peace. That is the difference between seeking and attracting. When you are in seeking mode, you are constantly looking outward for fulfillment. You are looking for someone to tell you that you are enough. You are looking for a relationship, a job, a title, or an achievement to give you a sense of worth. You are in a state of pursuit, always reaching, always trying, always searching. But when you shift into attracting mode, everything changes. You are no longer searching for validation because you already know your worth. You are no longer chasing love because you have cultivated love within yourself. You are no longer proving your value because your presence alone communicates it. And here's what happens when you make that shift. The people who once overlooked you start noticing you. The ones who took you for granted start feeling your absence. The people who assumed they could always have access to you suddenly realize that your energy is no longer available to them because you are no longer giving away your power. When you stop seeking, you naturally start attracting. You start drawing in the kind of energy that aligns with your new mindset. You start meeting people who respect you because they can feel that you respect yourself. You start seeing opportunities present themselves because you are no longer operating from a place of desperation, but from a place of confidence. The universe responds to energy. If you are constantly saying, I need this, I need that, I'm not whole without it, you will continue to experience situations that reinforce that feeling of lack. But the moment you say, I am already complete, I am already valuable, I am already whole, the world begins to mirror that truth back to you. And this is where the shift becomes undeniable. Because when you stop seeking, you no longer tolerate things that drain your energy. You no longer waste time on people who don't see your worth. You no longer allow yourself to be an option for someone who doesn't make you a priority. And that's when the people who thought they could replace you start to feel the weight of their mistake. They start realizing that your energy was rare, that what you brought to the table was unique, that your presence in their life was not something that could simply be swapped out or forgotten. And while they are losing sleep over you, while they are replaying old memories, while they are wondering what went wrong, you are elevating. You are no longer the person who needs them to see your value because you finally see it yourself.